If you're a beginner in the wonderful world of bullet journaling and are looking for a step-by-step tutorial on how to create a reading tracker page, then this is the tutorial for you. We're going through it real time, start to finish, so you can follow along, press pause as you go if you need to, and let's have some fun. Welcome to my channel, Rondell Designs, where I love sharing my art, craft, and DIY projects with you, as well as some creative business tips. So this is a step-by-step tutorial. We're going to start off the page with just a grey lead, and we're going to basically map out the page with the basic line work so that we know exactly the spacing and where everything's going to go. First up, I'm writing reading list in the top left corner. I've got my adorable baby ruler that I use all the time in bullet journaling, and this is just to make the lines nice and straight. So we're going to do some little shelves that the little books and the plants will sit on. Now, when it comes to the type of grey lead to use in your bullet journal, I really prefer the mechanical pencil like I'm using here, just because it gives you that really fine line. And remember, with your grey lead, don't press too hard. You're really just wanting to give a light line work of what you will then go over with your black fine liner. Remember, with this tutorial, if you are following along in real time and I'm getting a little bit ahead of where you're up to, just hit that pause button until you catch up, and then we'll continue along together. Now that we've got our little bookshelves all ruled up, it's time to add the books and some details. So decorations like pot plants, you could do vases. So you can do yours exactly like mine if you want to, or you can sort of choose to add in a few other little decorations on the shelves along with the books. This first plant I'm doing is kind of a replica of a mother-in-law's tongue plant, which has got those big, long, tall, spiky leaves. And then the next one, I'm just doing like a little hanging plant from the shelf above. And this is just a cute little round one. Again, you can make it different if you want to, or you can follow along exactly the same. Now I'm going to come back and do those little leaves in the hanging plant just with the fine liner, because I know I'm pretty confident with those leaves. Now the next part is adding the books. So I like to do the books in various sizes. So I tend to keep with a very similar width, but as you can see, the height, I make them taller and then shorter, and then I start to lean some on the side just because I feel like it makes it a lot more interesting than just having them all stacked up next to each other, all the same height. Because if you think about a real bookshelves, more often than not, it is sort of a bit loose like this. Well, mine is anyway. And then how this page works is you can add the book name to each book as you read them, or you can add books that you want to read. I often get recommendations from friends of books and I always forget them. So I actually have started putting the book title in my book tracker that I already had created for this year. And then as I've read them, I get a little highlighter and just highlight them off so that I know that they're read. And I'll be honest with you, the reading list tracker is one of my favorite tracker pages in the bullet journal. I don't use many tracker pages because I'm just not good at keeping up to date with those things. But the reading list one, I'm finding I'm using at least weekly, if not more. And although often the majority of the books I read now, I actually listen to on audiobooks, but I still pop them in my reading list because it's technically still a book that I'm listening to, which I consider reading. Now I've decided to break the pattern up a little bit to put some books horizontally instead, so stacked up horizontally. I thought that could look quite cute on this shelf here. Okay, now let's start the next shelf. So again, I'm just putting a little pot plant at the end here. You can put yours wherever you want, spaced out however you want. So you might want to do several. Just remember not to get too carried away with them, because you do want to make sure you've got enough room for a decent amount of books that you're going to read for the year or listen to, like if you like me and like audiobooks. Now for this plant, you just want to do some sort of squiggly lines, not too squiggly, just sort of, not straight, give them a little natural look. And then you're just adding some leaves, which is just that really simple leaf shape. You can have a practice on a scrap piece of paper if you need to, but just don't overthink it. Remember, you're going over in grey lead nice and light to start with, so that will make up for any little mistakes if you need to change anything. But this kind of reminds me of a devil's ivy plant, just how it's sort of flowing over the edge of the pot. Now, rather than starting the books for that row, I have decided to go ahead and go to the top shelf just to do the plant that's up there, because I will have that flowing over and coming into the second shelf, because that is also sort of a viney plant as well. So I just wanted to make sure that it wouldn't interfere with any of the books on that shelf. And with these leaves, I'm almost doing cute little love hearts on them. It reminds me of a plant that I have, and I can't remember what it's called, but the leaves are more of a love heart shape than a leaf shape. Okay, now that we've got those fiddly little leaves out of the way, we can start back on the shelf below and fill that up with lots of lovely books. Again, remembering just to make sure that they're not the exact same size, vary the heights a little bit. You can also vary the thicknesses of the books if you choose to. I haven't really done that much in this, but you can. It's totally up to you. And then, like I always do on the other shelves, I really like to just add a book that's on a slight angle. I just feel like that has a really nice, cute finish. And then we're just going to finish up the top row with the books, and then we will be ready to go over the top of the whole thing with our black fine liner. Now, as we're about to start using the fine liner, just remember to start from the furthest point from your writing hand. So I'm right-handed, which means I'm going to start from the top left corner so that I'm working away from the ink, which will avoid any smudging. Now comes the fun part. We've got the black fine liner. We're going to go over the page. Now, how I like to do my words, it's a bit of a trick. So I end up having a really cool look with my writing or lettering, but I'm not a calligrapher. I don't really know how to do fancy writing. So what I do is just go over just normal, like I've just done. And then as you can see here, I'm going back over each letter again and just thickening up certain parts of each letter. So with that N, I thickened up the start and the finish. And then with this D, you'll notice I'm thickening up the top part there and the bottom part. And then I'm also making a little bit of the oval part a bit thicker, usually on the side. So not on the top and the bottom, I usually do it on the side. And that kind of, to me, represents a more of a calligraphy look if I was using an actual calligraphy pen. And what a difference this makes. I do this all the time, whether I'm doing bullet journaling or I'm doing a typography artwork. I love doing this, and I've taught this in a workshop. And even people who think they cannot draw or cannot do nice writing end up making their words look really cool just by doing this technique where they're going over the top of the base letters. So you're starting with grey lead to get your basic shape right, then you're going over just with a plain fine liner, just with a single line, and then we're coming back over and really giving each letter some cool definition. So it's one of my favorite things to do, and you'll see by the end of this section what a difference that makes. Like, it just looks so much better. So I really highly recommend you giving this a go yourself. Again, if you're a bit nervous about doing it directly into your bullet journal, have a little practice on some scrap piece of paper first. Maybe do your name or just some simple words, or do the words reading list so you've got a good idea of how you want the letters to look when you do pop it into your bullet journal. Okay, now that we've got our words done, we're going to come over and do the shelves. Now, I did rule these shelves with my original with the grey lead. I'm not ruling them now though, because I do like that more hand-drawn finish, so it's not perfectly even and straight. If you don't like that look, feel free to use your ruler. It's totally fine. You might even prefer to use your ruler on the books themselves. I'm not doing that because it's just not my style. I really like that sort of more organic hand-drawn line finish. So we're just simply going over the books, and this is a really easy part. Now we're up to the pot. You want to make sure you don't use the fine liner to create a line where you will have a leaf. So do you see in that first line I drew, I left a gap because there is a leaf there, and it's always nice to have some leaves sitting over the top of the pot because it gives it a more three-dimensional look. So just be really careful when you're drawing in the pot that you're not going over the top of somewhere where you're going to put a leaf, because obviously then you won't be able to put a leaf. Now here you'll notice I'm changing up the leaf pattern a little bit. I decided when I'm coming over with my fine liner that it was a little bit too busy how I'd drawn in the leaves with the grey lead. So I'm just changing up a few and probably removing a couple and changing the positioning of a couple of them as well, which is fine to do. That's the grey lead really is just your guide so that you know where everything's going, and it's fine if you want to change things around a bit. So again, you'll see here, I'm just leaving that gap where I've drawn in some leaves because we don't want to have to be able to draw the leaf through the line of the shelf. By leaving that little gap, we can safely draw in the leaf and it's not going to affect the look, and it's going to give it more dimension because it looks like the leaves are flowing over the top of the shelf. Now remember when we did the grey lead, I didn't do the little leaves for this plant. That's so I'm just coming in and doing them now. They're super simple, very basic leaf shapes, so it's totally fine just to come in and do it then. But if you're more comfortable doing the layout when you're at the grey lead point, that is totally fine as well. Okay, now that we've finished the fine liner, I do let this sit for just a couple of minutes just to make sure that fine liner ink is all dry, because there's nothing worse than when you go over your fine liner drawing with an eraser and it smudges. So just make sure you do give it a little minute for the last part of your fine liner artwork to dry, to avoid any little smudges. We don't want smudges. So just get all of the grey lead out from under, and now we're just going to finish off this page just by adding some highlighted detail to the leaves. Now you might use highlighters, or you might have specific markers for your bullet journaling, or you might use pencils, or you might just leave it black and white. You don't have to add color, that's completely optional. I like to sometimes just add a little bit of color, just gives it a little something extra, but often I will leave pages just plain and uncolored. These are just standard highlighters. I'm using the tip point of them just to help stain the lines there, but I'm honestly not being precious about it at all. I'm not precious about my bullet journaling at all. It's more about the creative process, the fun, the relaxation. There's no point in getting upset with yourself if you make any little mistakes, because that's just part of the journey. So just be really mindful of that, to be patient with yourself and not put too much pressure on yourself. So this is not perfectly colored in. It gives it that super cute little pop of color though. And I've used two different greens. One's more of an aqua, just to sort of break it up a bit. And on this mother-in-law's tongue plant, I'm adding both colors because I felt like it looked a bit plain just with the one green. So I'm just sort of evenly mixing up the two colors, and I think it looks really cute. And that's it. Our reading list tracker page for our bullet journal is all finished. I hope you liked this tutorial. Please leave a comment below. I'd love to hear your feedback. Thanks for watching.